Welcome to the Reverie Roundtable, which we have Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern. We've got a great group of individuals here. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. Super chat's always appreciated, that kind of stuff. Let's say hello to our friend Wick. Wick here. Oh God. Wick of the false advertising. Wick, thanks for being around, buddy.
No, thanks for having me. Look, this is I don't give myself titles. These are titles that are given to me. And last week on PrimeCayes, the Reverie, in fact, I was crowned the most reasonable leftist, and I just have to advertise that and go with it because, gosh dang it, it's just true, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. So thanks for having me on, Prime. Thanks for putting up with my wishy-washiness, but I'm glad I'm here. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we'll go to our friend.
You didn't notice it first, did you?
I didn't notice it before. Fanatic, who has not been getting enough sun lately, but it's okay. All right. Handsome nonetheless. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm Fanatic Liberty, also known as Fabian Liberty, in honor. We're changing our name tonight in honor for our fallen brethren Fanatic, who was able to come and then backed out just a couple hours before. I'm doing great. We're having fun. Oh God, I recently embroiled myself in drama, which I do about once every 6 months on Twitch, unlike some Twitch streamers that do it like every other stream. Chud Logic. The LP has nominated Carolyn Borisenko as gubernatorial candidate. And so we just did a giant deep dive in what a piece of shit monster, doxer, abuser, sexual harasser that this person was. And that's been fun. I've also found out from the Twitter space and from her community that not only am I Fanatic tonight, but I'm also a democratic socialist. And she is convinced her people that I am a socialist. So tonight I will be on your side, PrimeCayes.
Okay.
Apparently. I don't know how it happened, but that's just what's going on. So
you have finally ascended. You have seen the light.
Yes. I have rejected all of my knowledge of philosophy and of economics, and I've wiped it all out, and now I've become a consequentialist with a poor understanding of econ. And these two things combined, I can now be a dim sock.
So happy to have you among our ranks. All right, a soldier for the revolution.
Comrade.
Excuse me, but I actually don't know who this person is. Could you educate me? Who is this individual you're talking
Carolyn
about?
Borisenko got real famous for the Walk Away campaign. She was a PhD, and then she was like went to like Walk Away and went to a MAGA crowd. Then she got kicked out of Walk Away for being too toxic, and then she got kicked out of PragerU for being too toxic. But she was a person that like said that
kicked
Hitler
out of
went to
PragerU
heaven. She said that Hitler went to heaven because like everyone chooses their the spirit world helps people choose the life they want to live, and like everything is predetermined. So all Jews under Nazi occupation actually chose that because they wanted to feel what it was like to be oppressed. And PragerU, Dennis Prager, the Jew, was like, fucking, you can go away for that, and then got picked up by the LP. I have burned several bridges with the LP, by the way. Like Jeremy Kaufman and I used to be somewhat talk, and I have been left on red now.
Wow. Sorry. Just shocking moments there. Wow. Okay, great. Well, anyway, I'm glad we have individual
libertarian drama, even less interesting than right-wing drama. Right?
Yeah. But I know you got a lot of sense there, Scott. So you don't associate with those types of people, so I'm happy to hear that. So let's go to our friend Isle. Isle is back with us. Isle, so happy to see you. Thanks for being here.
As you may have noticed from my name change as well, I am not the Isle of last panel. I am actually my alter ego, Isle of Isles, and I am part of the PCNF community. I will also be representing PrimeCayes in this conversation because I have abandoned all my sense of logic and morals and human decency. And so I will now take up the PrimeCayes position. Thank you. But yeah, it's great to be here.
In case you don't know, this is a meme started by our good friend JSU Gambit. PCNF means Prime, Kai, and Friends. And apparently, it's just the handle for like the worst leftist you'll find on Twitter, on anywhere else. Even though I don't associate with those people. Okay.
Prime is just a very friendly, personable guy, of course.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Well, whatever. Thanks so much. Let's go to our friend Lactoid. Lactoid, thanks for coming back. Lactoid, a fantastic member of this community, who is telling us all kinds of stories about his profession. I really want to hear like some of your war stories, right? Like when we're off screen, because I really don't want to get you in trouble. But
Sure.
I really want to hear some of those stories because they sound fascinating.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for having me on Prime. As always, it was a pleasure it's a pleasure to come on, and really want to thank you for inviting me. I think Hitler was evil, but according to Christian doctrine, since all you have to do is believe in Jesus Christ, technically he would be going to heaven. So I don't know if her theology is actually all that wrong on that one. But you can find me on Anti-Communism United on Discord and Twitch. And streaming. I'm trying to stream pretty consistently now. So come on, hang out. And if anybody wants to talk about anything, just hit me up.
Lactoid, embrace Catholicism and or Orthodox. Hitler killed himself. He's in hell.
That's a good point.
It's a good argument, right?
That's a good argument. Yeah, that's a good argument. Damn, yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, next we have our friend Sprouticus back with us, right?
What's up?
Sprouticus, thank you for coming through. Sprouticus is always a fun guy to have around, so thanks for stopping by.
Hey, not a problem. I'm the Sprouticus. You can find me at Twitch and Twitter underneath the same name, the Sprouticus. I am the first leader of the Wild Card Party for the United States of America. It's the next up and coming party. So look forward to seeing you. Look forward to the conversation, and let's see what happens.
Okay. Next, we have our friend Tiberius. Tiberius is back with us. Tiberius, happy to have you here. How you doing, friend?
What's going on, everybody? It's good to be back here. I don't know what I'm doing here because apparently there was some kind of gimmick that I was not informed of with Prime and Friends. So thanks for leaving me out once again. Always appreciated. But yeah, if you guys don't know who I am by now, where have you been? Because I'm here, about every other week now? So I really appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully these conversations go really well, but they usually do. And Doobie, I'm loving the background. Great change. Keep it.
Speaking of, our Dark Lord and Savior Doobie is here. Doobie, competing with Sprouticus for the most patriotic individual on the panel, right? And like his background is utterly complete, right? Utterly American. So I'm guessing he wins that fight. I'm sorry, Sprouticus. You lost that. And Lactoid too. Okay, all right.
Lactoid's flag is covered in piss. So like
a black background because I'm
It's
black.
tea stained. It's tea. That's
yeah.
what the Amazon description said.
I got a black background because I'm just black pilled on America KKK. All right, in solidarity with my comrade.
You really are a
guys.
fucking dem sock. Sock dem, whatever it is.
But Doobie, since you've chased off your rivals, Doobie, please, yeah, how are you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. It was my birthday 2 days ago, and I'm old. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Old as fuck. Don't forget, please.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate you. Yeah, happy birthday to our friend Doobie. We gave him the song the other day, but
It's
yeah,
really awkward.
It has to be. It always has to be. Look, we've sung you a happy birthday previously, right? Yeah. I think we've done a few people. we got to let you guys know that you're loved here, right? You're loved and appreciated. Seriously, all of you, every single one of you. All right. So let's jump into it. First topic, which I never have on screen. First topic: James Franco has been cast as Fidel Castro in an upcoming film. This was immediately protested by John Leguizamo because Franco isn't Latin. He argues that Hollywood is stealing the narratives of minorities and appropriating them. Do you think that this is an actual problem? Should an accomplished actor like Franco be passed up for this role? And what would it make a difference if Franco had the wrong skin color? So yeah, super interested to talk about this. We haven't talked about representation. Spartacus, we got some background noise from you, buddy.
Sorry, my bad.
No problem. We haven't had this conversation in a while, and it's always fun. It's always calm. And people listen to each other's points here, so I'm very excited about it. But yeah, it's a conversation about, like, does it make a difference as long as a person can make a good performance, right? And it's reasonably convincing, like what does it make what their background is. So let's dig into that. We'll start with our friend Wick, please.
So this is odd to me, okay? Are we only going to let German citizens play Hitler? Like, is that a thing? Like, are we really like going to take these roles and just pigeonhole who can and cannot based on identity markers? No, I think that's a little weird, right? Now, obviously, if you are doing a historical piece, you want someone who can look the part, right? But makeup can do wild and amazing things these days, right? And so I think that when it comes to representation, it's important. But what we need is good actors playing roles and representing figures, historical figures, well, and playing them well. So I think that this isn't a problem. If they want James Franco to play Fidel Castro, that's okay. If he had a different skin color, you know what? That'd be okay too, right? Yeah, that's my take.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll go to our friend Fabian Liberty. Please, Scott, excuse me.
Yeah, so I'm basically going to say what Wick said, but a lot farther. First of all, fuck John Leguizamo. All right, just fuck him. He's engaging in this bullshit identity politics, and I could go into more of that, but like I want to term this idea of representation of the Hispanic and Latinx community, in honor of being a DemSoc. I want to call it sombrero capitalism, right? The idea that like a certain percentage of individuals need to be present for it to somehow be true representation is fucking stupid. I mean, first of all, Elena Fernandez gave her blessing. Right? This is the person the movie is about. This is Castro's daughter. Second of all, a majority of the cast is Hispanic. It's not like it's just a ton of white people, which, obviously Cubans can be white or Afro-Cuban, which complicates this issue even more. But it's not like just like a bunch of like British people are playing Cubans, right? It's one person, it's James Franco. And if you look at the motherfucker, he looks like Fidel. Like, it's a perfect fucking role for him. But the biggest thing that I want to state is there's this idea that I think that the left believes representation matters, and the right is like, no, none of that matters. And I think I want to bridge the gap, because I do think representation matters. But I think that representation, the way that Hollywood has been selling it, is about percentages and numbers, like it's a corporation trying to sell you on the idea that they care. Representation is about empathy. It's about feeling a story. It's about telling stories that are a part of our culture or other cultures. And so if the story gets told well, and it's true to how many people innately feel, then that's important representation. And so I think a great example of this is Love, Simon, right? Love, Simon is basically just a teenage heartthrob, coming of age love story, except it's about, a secret admirer, and it's a gay story. It's about a boy searching for a boy, that trying to figure out who his secret admirer is. And the director of Love, Simon, talked about this, and he said that he always felt like there was literally no representation for him. But worse than that, he knew that he was a part of a community, but he couldn't join that community until he was an adult. Like, he understood that he was a part of a group, and it wasn't until he was able to escape from his home and his parents that he was ever even able to join that group. And so it was really meaningful to a ton of people to see like a regular film tell a love story that they can kind of like identify with. That's a story. That's a narrative. That's empathy. That brings people that might disagree with you, and it brings stories about like everybody in America or in our culture together. The idea that someone needs to have the right skin color to tell a story is racism and critical theory. It's ideological bullshit, and it's not what people want, and it's not what people deserve. And so I will actually say that representation does matter, and that John Leguizamo is engaging in political bullshit, and he should shut the fuck up and sit down with his racist ass. And he should let James Franco, who looks just like Fidel, fucking play Fidel.
Thank you so much. All right. Isle.
This John Leguizamo sound, is coming off as a very bitter understudy, sniping at the heels of his, better actor. And I think that I'm very, very, confident saying that, and that's why I'm saying it twice. John Leguizamo is coming off like a bitter understudy, sniping at the heels of his better actor. He's causing drama, trying to get Franco to get down, because I'm pretty sure he thinks that he'll have a shot, but he doesn't deserve that shot. Franco can do the role. I don't. I'm of two minds of this, really, because there are some things that I think are like really bad, like like when people in woke corporations try and like put people in there just for the sake of diversity, like having a black woman play Anna Boleyn for no reason other than that they just wanted to do that. But I also believe in meritocracy. If the best person for the role is earns the role fairly and squarely, I think they should have the role. I mean, Scarlett Johansson in Ghost in the Shell played the role of Makoto Kusanagi pretty well. I thought she was pretty handily in that, and so I think that it can work. I mean, I think the movie itself, the writing was not the best, and so I think that was where it failed. I don't think it was Scarlett Johansson's portrayal of the character. So I think that James Franco can play Fidel Castro if he is the best actor, and apparently he has, from what Fabian says, he just has like a very similar look in his natural demeanor to Fidel Castro, and he can probably play the role off with enough direction. So I think it's gonna work, and that's all I gotta say.
Thank you so much. Let's go to our friend Tiberius.
Yeah, so Scott actually hit about 60-70% of what I wanted to say, so I'll separate a few things out and I'll hammer on those. Number one, what you guys call cultural appropriation is pretty fucking based, actually. Bringing other cultures' ideas and stories into your own and metabolizing them into a greater whole, I think, is actually really wonderful. And the people who think that's a bad thing can fuck right off. Second, Franco's a decent actor. I'd probably put him like B+, A- tier. So, like, I don't think he's incompetent to the point where he cannot portray the role. And I do agree that, he does kind of look, close enough to Franco that he can probably play it. Stories just matter. I think Scott made that very well. So the final note is this. If Franco can't play the role, then bitch. The fact that he's been cast in it, he's competent, he can give the story life and meaning. Just bitch if he fucks it up. Like, why are we having this conversation ahead of time? And I'm not saying like it's not worthy. What I'm more saying is that if this is the things that people have to bitch about, I question where your priorities are. So I'll end with that.
Much. Okay. Let's go to our friend Lacto. I might have to fight the looks like I'll have to fight the entire panel. All my lefties dropped out. So don't worry, right? As the head of the PCNF community, I'm more than capable of taking you all on. But Lactoid, please.
Sure. Movies are art, and the director is the artist as regards painting the plot. Ultimately, the director should be making the creative decisions on who should be cast. That's their right. However, personally, I want people to play roles if they fulfill two categories. One, they're talented actors, and two, they don't break continuity and immersion. I do have issues with traditionally white superheroes or traditionally white characters being played by minorities and vice versa. Not because they're not talented, but because it breaks continuity and immersion. My favorite TV show is The Wire. If Avon Barksdale suddenly becomes a white guy in season 3, it would ruin the entire show for me, even if that white actor is an A-list actor, because it not only breaks continuity, but the culture expressed by Avon Barksdale is clearly that of a black dialect. If they cast Ryan Reynolds as the new Black Panther to replace Chadwick Boseman, I wouldn't want to watch that movie because it breaks continuity and immersion for the viewers. Same if they made a black Superman or a black Batman or a black Batgirl. I wouldn't want to watch it, and I think absent the woke community, most other people wouldn't want to either. In this way, there could be some validity to John Leguizamo's opinion if it weren't for the fact that James Franco looks stunningly similar to Fidel Castro, far more than John does. Hispanics in the U.S. can be considered white for a reason. People from Spain are white, and Latin America was extensively colonized by Spain. This is why it is Latin America. The Spanish colonization was far more brutal than the English colonization. Plenty of Latinos are white colonizers. Plenty of Cubans are white, as Cuba was colonized by Spain. Fidel Castro is either white or white passing, although because race isn't real, I don't recognize a difference. For all intents and purposes, anyone who is white passing is white. So Fidel Castro is white, just as Franco is white. So I have no issue with him playing Castro for any reason.
I love how our friend Lactoid actually writes these things down. He reads this from a script. He prepares this. And so of course Scott does as well. Okay, all right. So it's like
my script is all
down.
up here. My script is all up here.
They sit down, they write this out. They're like, oh no, this looks good. This checks out. All right. Thanks so much.
Clearly, he did not write it well enough because he said that he would have a problem breaking the fourth wall with a black Batwoman. Are you saying that black women can't be billionaires, Lactoid?
Oh boy,
because that's racist.
I hadn't even thought of that. I hadn't even thought about the Batwoman thing. We could talk about that too. I even though I read 5 articles about that today, it didn't even occur to me.
Channeling my dim sock. Sorry.
Hey, there's a reason it was canceled. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Just silencing women's voices. That's what you're doing, Brian. Notice there are no women on this panel. That's
oh my god. Fucking wicked. All right, Sprouticus, please save us. All right.
Listen, when I go to the movies, I go to be entertained. That is why I'm at the movies. I'm there to be entertained by a movie that's being shown on screen. When I play a movie, I'm there. I'm sitting down on the couch to be entertained. And that is the most important part of the movie. The movie has to be entertaining first and foremost. I never go to a movie and decide to sit down and be like, you know what? I'm here for this movie to try and purity test this. And no one in their right mind that isn't terminally online goes to movies to try and purity test the movie. No, I'm there to be entertained. So if the director of the movie decides that, yeah, I do want this person to play this role because they think they're going to do very well, I think they're going to be entertaining in this role, then yes, I think that they should be able to play that role. If they're not entertaining, the movie will suffer the repercussions of the actor not being entertaining. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to is the entertainment value of the actor and of the script.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Last but not least, Doobie. Oh, goddamn, Doobie, please tell us where you are on this.
So I think it's really interesting. I think Lactoid said earlier, right? Hispanics are white passing. Or they might be white. They might just be white. And I think for a lot of people on the left, that is literally how it's treated. Right? If you're not black, you're a white person. You might even be like a white passing Asian dude, right? Who looks fucking Chinese, but you're white passing because you're not like a criminal or something. I think this is how a lot of lefties are treating this, like the race topic. And I think that's what you guys are doing right now. Right. So I think if we were to take someone like MLK and applied all the arguments that you baboons just made toward him, right? Toward that person in history, like, oh, I just want someone who can play the role and somebody who can, it doesn't matter. It's the vision of the director that matters, etc. I don't care about the race at all. If you care about the race, you're a racist, and etc. Like, none of you would buy that shit, right? Obviously, right? I think there's something to be said for lefties and apparently right wingers who are just so colorblind they do racist shit, totally dismissing or discounting the importance of race in certain topics in certain contexts. And I think in this context, it's important because this is a Cuban story about Cuban people. Why the fuck would you stick a white guy in there? A white guy who, by the way, like 4 or 5 years ago, was caught trying to groom a 17-year-old when he was in his late 30s, right? Who has like over a decade of sexual like harassment allegations at him. Like, why the fuck would you stick that guy in the role? There are plenty of Hispanic actors in Hollywood that you could stick in that role who look much more like Fidel Castro without any fucking makeup, right? You can just stick out a scruffy beard on these dudes, and holy shit, it's Fidel Castro, because apparently all these people look the same to you guys, right? So like, I don't know. This seems like hope. I don't think you guys would buy these arguments if you're making them toward like any black historical figure. And given that that's the case, I don't believe that the race doesn't matter to you.
So I have a question for you.
No, before you do, because I'm not gonna leave my man Doobie hanging. I'm gonna be fighting alongside with them. Okay, so I have lots of thoughts on this.
I think it's interesting. The PC enough community.
I think it's interesting that this message is coming from John Leguizamo. If we don't forget, who's Hispanic, but if we don't forget that he rose to fame as Luigi in the Super Mario Brothers, right? Playing an Italian stereotype. So I think it's fascinating. That
is he Cuban?
Yeah. No, I think he's Colombian. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think Colombian. Born in Bogota, Colombia.
You forgot the other time, which is where he played as a homosexual drag queen.
Oh, wait a minute, hold on. I think I remember that. I think I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. So is his two big like entries into Hollywood were him fucking LARPing as other ethnicities and sexualities.
Okay,
I think you guys are massively downplaying what this man did in his career. He didn't rise to fame through the fucking Mario movie. In fact, he said that is one of his biggest mistakes ever. Right? He said that like repeatedly in interviews. Right? So he rose to fame as a comedian, right? And moves like The Pest, and there are like a ton of other ones that he was in. So like, come on.
All right. Well, I'll finish my thoughts then. I think that I take the opposite stand from most of you. Representation absolutely does matter. It does matter to get those actors into the door, right? Like you can say that, yeah, well, this other person might be able to put a great performance, and I think James Franco, is a really good actor, and I think he could probably do a fantastic performance for this. But that doesn't mean that other people can't, right? If you look for them, you look for that talent, you'll find maybe new talent, possibly better talent, and people who could bring something to the table that these other actors cannot. Like there's little details when people are from that culture that they can incorporate that a person otherwise might not be able to, right? I am not of the Latin community. I don't know Latin culture, but I could read a script. If you put a script in front of me, I'm not a good actor, but like you could put a script in front of me, I can read that script, but I'm not going to add any flourishes that other Latin individuals will pick up on. Hey, yeah, that makes sense. That happens in my life, right? That's how they act. Or sometimes, because
PrimeCayes, that's
a
why
good actor
let me
let
because James Franco is a degenerate piece of shit that abuses people just like Fidel Castro. And he can bring that little bits and pieces from him into his role in a way that the average Cuban just can't.
That there is that.
And besides,
too. Well, hold on, guys. Let me finish. Let me finish. Okay, right. I'll be done soon. So anyway, that's the thing that happens, right? And we've seen this in many areas where we have these actors who are white trying to do roles in other communities and like falling flat, or even worse than that, like not just neutral, just like doing a huge disservice. It's a thing that happens, right? I think it's fair to say, well, like, it doesn't make sense to have like only Germans playing like German roles or something like that. I hear you. But it matters because there are minorities who have traditionally have been locked out of Hollywood, been not locked out of these roles. They can't get in, right? These people are having trouble getting their first step, so they can have their hit, right? So they can have that long career, right? The when you let these people in, then they have the option, they have the ability to get higher salaries later on, right? The more films they get, the more higher salaries that open up from set balances out pay disparities, but it also allows them to bring in more people as well, right? Because you bring in the people you know, and most like white people know white people, right? Black people know a lot of black people. So if we're opening the doors to these individuals, it has a multiplying effect. A multiplying effect if you just have white people on here, right, and just occasionally sprinkle in minorities, and a multiplying effect if you do the opposite. You try to get some diversity. So I think it's very important. Now I'm done.
Okay,
wanna
so
touch on
I
something
just want to
really
push
important.
back real
Okay,
quick
go
though
ahead,
on
Wade.
this, if I may, real quick. Like, look, I get that it should be a factor, right? It should be a factor because of all the things you said, that representation matters, that these people need to have a chance to get into this industry. But we're talking about a very specific situation, right? And it cannot be the deciding factor when you go for a role. The sole deciding factor cannot be if you are exactly the same identity and
Right.
you line up on all the
Yeah.
and cross
So
all the
long as
T's
the
and dot
actor's a
all the
really good
I's.
actor, you could have a white MLK movie. Yeah, that's wonderful.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you can have a Black Hamilton movie, why couldn't you?
Okay, so yeah, so your Wick is okay with the
No,
white.
no, why
MLK
couldn't you? If
movie,
an
that'd
artist
be like a
wanted to do
reasonable
that,
I am.
I'm being very serious right now.
Wait,
If an
that's a
artist
good
wanted
point.
to do that, if an artist wanted to explore, like, what if, right? What if this was a race reversal thing?
No, not
Why
a race
couldn't
reversal.
they?
Just MLK is a white guy now. He's not black anymore.
What if he
Yeah,
was
why
black
couldn't they?
passing?
Yeah, they
I-
could.
That's what was
They
Hamilton was
could,
about.
but I think
Yeah,
a lot of people
that's what it was. They
justifiably
were
be really
rapping
So
upset
if a black
about this
director,
iconic
if a black director
icon being
if a
turned into
black
another white
director
dude.
wanted to cast a white dude and he was like, wow, this white dude, I'm a black guy, and this white dude plays MLK great, and I want to cast him. You're going to say, no, you can't do that?
Doobie,
Hold on, I'm
Doobie,
not
how
saying
do
it
you
should be illegal.
Doobie?
Hold on, to be clear. I'm not saying it should be illegal. I'm saying it's really fucking stupid, and we need to consider the cultural and social context in which these movies are being made. Right. So if
Doobie,
you are a dude who's going
like
to put forward
Hamilton.
a Hollywood production of a black MLK movie, right? I'm sorry, of a white MLK movie, right? Where rather than being like this black icon with all with his past, etc., with his family, his religion. He's a white guy now, and maybe he works at a car dealership. You know, just change him entirely.
Then you're changing
Doobie,
everything.
Doobie.
Because at
But
that point, you're changing.
it
At that point,
doesn't
you're
matter,
changing
right?
everything.
Okay,
It doesn't
hold on.
Doobie.
Hold on.
No,
Do you
Doobie.
think
if you're
that his
trying-
race?
no,
Do you
let me
think that his race?
trying to make it
Do you think that his?
historically-
Do you think that his race is less?
Guys, let Doobie finish, right? Then we're gonna go to Ty. We're going to Scott, and
No,
then
it's just
Spartacus.
one quick question. One quick question for Doobie. How would you feel about Sean King playing MLK?
Okay, then Ty.
Josh
and
Shonky
then
is white,
Doobie.
by the way.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say he's white. Apparently, he's
What if
white.
Rachel
Don't you think
Dolezal played
What do you feel
MLK?
about Sean King
Rachel
playing
Dolezal
MLK?
is also white. Okay, these are white people.
Wow, that's
Okay, all
transphobic.
right.
Okay, Ty, you want to say something?
I do. We talked about this on Mask Off, shameless plug, about a week ago, and we came to some really interesting conclusions because basically, in a nutshell, is that some roles translate very well. Sometimes you get colorism where it's just like this person looks a little too much like this person, but identifies as an opposite race, whether it's like mixed or white or what have you. I'm not going to get into that particular detail, but I want to put it in the context of what we kind of agreed on. Spider-Man, interesting character, right? In that particular role is that we have seen that jump raise from Peter Parker to Miles Morales, and it's fucking great. Like Into the Spider-Verse was a great story. And then you have some others that really don't land very well. There is a Black Thor now, and it's just fucking weird, and it doesn't translate at all. On the same time, could you all imagine White Static Shock? Like,
This
how
is
do you make
cringe.
that work?
Hold on, the white Spider-Man isn't Peter Parker. I'm sorry, the black Spider-Man isn't Peter Parker. It's Miles Morales. It's an entirely different character, either usually from another universe or from the same universe, and somebody who became like an understudy of Peter Parker. So they didn't just race swap Peter Parker one day. They actually created a character, fully fleshed out character who's black, right? Who's like
Why couldn't they make a new
So
character?
what if someone
yeah?
by
They
the
need
way,
like
has
a new
different-
MLK character.
alternate
He
universe?
also has different powers.
What if someone
right?
can I? Yeah. What if someone wanted to use wanted to make an alternate universe where MLK was white? Like, what if there's all these alternate versions of history that are becoming movies to where it's like, what if this happened? What if that happened? And Doobie, you're trying to make your argument stand on its feet by saying that okay, now MLK is just the guy who works. He's a salesman at a dealership. Like you're trying to make it stand on its feet by ripping away everything about MLK and be like, oh, it's okay because he's just a salesman. He goes to church, he prays. Like this is like
about. That
So,
most
I'm
central
not trying
to
to
who
make
he
it
was
stand
than
on
his-
its
than whether or
feet.
not within his fucking job, whether he worked at a car dealership or not.
So
why would that matter except for you trying to make it stand on
Why would
its
it
feet
matter?
by trying to rip
So,
away everything
I-
everything out of the story?
Why does
so
MLK's race matter?
but hold on. Okay, so I think
Well,
there
no,
is
his
a
job,
kernel
his
of a
job is
point
not
here.
tied to his race. He can be
We'll
a
go
white
to
minister.
we'll go to Electoid and then Scott. All right, let's see. All right, and I'll you want to say something else? We'll do that too. But I think there is you're touching on something, talking about artistic freedom, right? So in the case of a white MLK, I think there. I can consider. I can conceive of a film,
I'd make
right?
a great white
Where-
MLK, by the way.
I can conceive of a film where you swap the races of everyone, right? Like the entire
If I play MLK, does that mean I get to fuck a bunch of women and cheat on my wife?
oh my
'Cause that'd
god.
be
You swap the races of everyone in the civil rights movement, right? Like the people who are oppressed, right? Like black people like running the country and oppressing white individuals, right? And then that could be like a powerful movie from like an artistic perspective, right? Like I'm trying to state something here, trying to show you something by doing this, like showing like little white children being chased by police dogs, right? Like there is something there. I hear you, right? But I don't think that's necessarily.
Will they be Rottweilers and pit bulls
Oh my god! I don't
instead
think
of German shepherds?
Oh my god! I don't think that's what's happening here, though, right? Like, is anyone arguing that it's an artistic decision here? That's all that it is, or are they just like taking a big
It'd
name
be more like-
actor?
Well,
It'd
it's
be
not
more like
all-
it'd be more like if they made an MLK movie with a white actor and they gave him like the Robert Downey Jr. treatment and put him in blackface, right? Because his race isn't changing in the
It's
story. He's
not.
still a black guy,
Yeah.
right? But hey, the actor's white, so we're gonna make him look black.
Look,
Let's go to Lactoid.
Blackface was the
and
point
then
of his
Isle.
character, though.
Well, so Doobie, you started off by saying
Yeah,
that you're
I
going to
understand
disagree.
Scott.
You're going to disagree with the whole panel, but in my opening, I said a lot of these things, right? Like I think it'd be patently, although sure, artistic, freedom, the director should be able to if he wants to. But I think it's ridiculous if they recast Black Panther as Ryan Reynolds or like some like very cheesy white dude. Like, can you imagine like Owen Wilson like playing Black Panther? It just wouldn't work. I wouldn't want to watch that movie because that's not who Black Panther is, right? If we're being honest. So I mean, I
What if
agree with
they-
that.
what if
As
they put him
long as you don't break the immersion, like I think it's fair game. And
Yeah, so it's
this
fine. If
dude
he's
looks
engaged
just
with
like Fidel
blackface.
Castro.
No, he doesn't.
It's scary. Yeah, it's scary.
Okay, there's more to looking like Fidel Castro than having a scruffy beard. Okay,
No, it's not a scruffy beard. Like his
It is a
his
scruffy
facial
beard. He doesn't
features.
have the
Look.
same facial features at all.
Oh yeah.
do they have to? What if you had a Cuban national, right, who wanted to play, but they didn't like have the same facial features? Would it no longer be okay to cast them in Fidel Castro's role?
I think you can get close without being like insane, right? Like, but even then, if for some of these films where they do this kind of shit, like they did this for Prince of Persia, right, where they cast an all-white cast basically, and they were supposed to be like Arabians or like Middle Easterners or some shit, right?
By the census,
But-
they're
and
white.
they just put them but they weren't white in the movie. They just
But we're
made them
not
tan.
talking about an entire
Stop,
cast. We're
stop,
talking about
stop,
one
Yeah,
Stop, stop.
individual.
So they just made them tan, right? And now it's suddenly we're supposed to believe that these people are all in the Middle East, but they're actually just white actors who were like tanned. So if they did some shit like that, right? And that's probably what they're gonna end up doing because he's very white. Like James Franco is like not like a Hispanic passing person at all, right? So they might need to darken his skin a little bit, right, to make him fit the role. So
My
I don't think it makes
question
sense
is
to
why
say
do
that.
why do you care so much? I guess this
Can
is
I
my
respond
question.
to
Why
that
do you wait 1 second? Why do you care so much about skin color? Literally, Dibby, why do you?
I don't. Hold
It
on.
seems to me. It seems to
In
me
this
that means that.
context, it
Wait,
matters.
it seems to me that is your biggest beef is that, this person had changed their skin color to take on this role.
Now, I
Okay,
understand
so
you're a white
they
devil
didn't
and
have
you've
to
never
take
had to
on
worry
it.
about skin color in your entire life, right? But the reality is, in some contexts, skin color does matter. It is important. In this context,
Okay,
it's
I
important. In
understand
the
that,
MLK movie,
but
it would
what
be important.
I'm not suggesting that
Castro's fucking white. What
a
are we
black
talking
person
about?
can't play a white role. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting the movie should be entertaining. And if the movie's not entertaining, then the director is going to take the fall from the movie. So it's on the director to make the
cares?
movie entertaining, to get people to go out and
No
watch
one,
it.
who cares about that? Nobody's talking about whether or not to be a good movie or a bad movie. We're talking about
Dibby,
their representation in the movie.
I have a quick question for
and then
one final question
Scott
based
and Kyle.
on your response. Let's say they do. So you can go look at pictures of Fidel Castro. He's not brown. Like, he is very pale. Like, a lot of people in South America and the Caribbean are like white. They just, because obviously the Spaniards are white and Spaniards came over. It's kind of funny. Just because you hear a Spanish accent doesn't mean like people, that's a person of color. It's not true. Everybody in Spain is white, right? It's a European country that colonized large areas of the Americas. If they cast James Franco and they don't need to like darken his skin or anything, they just like put like a beard on him and then he goes out and he plays an amazing Fidel Castro. Like, he does the script perfectly. He has the accent down. Like, he really plays it up. Like, Doobie, are you going to have any concerns at that point?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Because again, the issue isn't just the skin color. It isn't just that they're sticking James Franco, who's a groomer, in a fucking sex
It's
path.
irrelevant to this
It's not.
question.
It's not just that, right? The issue is that, hey, they have a role that is the location of Cuba. The Cuban people. The story is very so what I'm looking for. There's a lot of weight to this, right? It's not just some random ass story about like another fairy tale or whatever the fuck. There's historical context to this. There's people in our country who want to be who want these stories told, right? From Fidel's side and from the other side. They want to hear these stories. And when you tell these stories that are historically just like undertold, and you stick a white dude in the role, right? Totally ignoring that Hollywood is full of Hispanic actors that could fill the role much better than James Franco, without all the weight, the bags that he comes with, that actually look like Fidel Castro, with and without the scruffy beard, right? I think there's a problem there, and so I have a problem with it
Reading
just
a
the way
script.
just the way that I have a problem with there being a white actor playing MLK and putting on blackface to fit the
Or,
role.
or a
So,
black
Doobie,
Batgirl,
so
right? You have a
Doobie-
problem with that?
So,
too.
so,
Yeah, of
So,
course.
Doobie,
we
Doobie,
got to go. We got to hold on. We got Scott waiting. We got Al, then you, Spartacus, and Wick.
All right. So first thing, Castro's a white guy that murdered tons of Afro-Cubans in the history of communism in Cuba. So I don't even understand this stupid fucking argument about like all of a sudden Hispanic as an ethnicity matters. Second of all, again, I want to go back to my point that the story matters. So I understand Doobie and Lactoid that like we're kind of all saying the same thing and you're sticking to different weird lines in the sand, which is that if the story is interrupted, if the narrative is unable to be told because of like this breaking of the fourth wall, it feels offensive because it's unable to represent the story. And you can do this even with race swaps. Case in point, Julie Newmar. Does anybody know who Julie Newmar is? Yeah, I didn't think so. That's the original Catwoman. Fucking white girl. White girl is the original Catwoman. Nobody gives a fuck because Halle Berry was sexy as fuck and pulled off Catwoman better than anybody else. And guess what? Catwoman is just black now. All right. Nobody gave a fuck about that race swap. And you know why? Because Halle Berry was sexy as fuck and played the role and she made it live like a fucking cat. And like we just accepted that shit because she did the story and the story was well.
Wasn't it a terrible
Right?
movie? Wasn't that
No,
like
It wasn't.
one of the
okay.
worst?
It was a
the
shit
movie.
movie, yes.
The movie was bad. Her portrayal
Hold on,
of the
but-
role
but-
was
Fucking
not.
male brain.
Okay, listen, kind of verify because I remembered a black woman playing.
But
there was a black woman playing Catwoman
was
in this.
sexy.
I want to get back. I
But
want to get back. I want to get back to something that's really important that PrimeCayes that I wanted to talk to on PrimeCayes about because this is the racism that is so dominant in our culture against quote unquote white people. Is he openly says, no, it would be ridiculous to require Germans to play Hitler or Germans to play other German roles. But that's exactly what we're talking about here. As we're talking about Fidel Castro, a white guy, being played by another white guy, but he actually now he needs to be from the ethnicity and have a Cuban understanding and Cuban ethnicity. But we don't care when it's white people. And this is the fucking erasure that multiculturalism has done to white people. Is that we consider ourselves white.
You're going off the
and
cliff again.
We have erased
He's so
Polish
right about
identity. We have released German identity.
Swedish.
We have released what it means to be French or Swedish or all of these countries. And we're no longer connected to our culture and our ethnicity because we are put in a fucking box and told, you're white people. And like we can engage in racism so long as it's against white people. And who cares if a German plays a German role?
But I'm
But a
white.
white guy
Wow.
playing another white guy in a Cuban role?
I am a
all of
white
a sudden that's a
person.
problem.
It's just
Wow.
who I
Wow.
am.
Wow,
hold on.
that's so
I need to be
disgusting.
knocked out of the park just
So,
there.
okay,
I
I'll-
need to
my
be
turn.
clear about
It's
this.
my turn.
But Scott, you're
It's
like
my
half
turn. I
right. So
think
I
I
agree
would
with
go.
half of what you said, but I wouldn't be okay with just anybody playing like a Hitler, for example. I wouldn't be okay with an Asian dude playing Hitler in whiteface.
Yeah, if they
Or a
look
black
like
dude
it
playing
and they
Hitler
can
in whiteface.
portray it effectively to
But
tell
what you
the
guys are telling
story,
me
then
is
we're
you could-
good.
Okay, wait, hold on. So
No.
if you had like if you had a black dude like from Nigeria, like some actor from Nigeria playing Hitler, and they put him in full whiteface, you'd be totally. You don't think that'd be
Yes.
weird at all?
No, that would break the fourth wall extremely. Like it would
If
be
he's in
awkward.
whiteface and you can't tell what race he actually is, like what's the issue?
If I can't
Oh,
tell,
So
there
you're
is no
saying
issue.
if I can't tell, I don't care.
They give him the white girl treatment. You know,
If I can't tell, I don't care.
But it's a good movie. You should watch.
Like
So
the
dude,
Latino,
I love
like
Tropic
the
Thunder.
Latino, like the Latino girl that's playing
Oh, white
Snow
girl.
White, right? Like there's a reason that breaks the fourth wall because her name is literally Snow White because her skin is white as snow, right? Like part of her character is that she's a
Can't say
super
that, that's true.
pale white girl, right?
I
like
also-
it doesn't
I've
make
got-
sense.
I've got
Wait,
one
I
question.
also want to comment
So,
real quick. Real quick.
You
So
got
when
say
I-
it quickly because I got to go to aisle. And I want to
when I-
respond to Scott.
well,
I don't get. I get skipped.
for real quick for
No, you're
years.
not going to get skipped. You're after aisle.
Real quick,
I was
for-
after Scott.
for years.
after
I
Scott.
thought Robert Downey
I
Jr.
was supposed to be after Wick, and I made
Shut
my
up!
joke.
I was
Wait.
after Scott.
All right, I'm waiting.
I thought Robert Downey Jr. was a black man for years because I saw a sign from Tropic Thunder in the movie theater, and it wasn't until Iron Man came out that I saw, and I was very confused. I was like, "Is this the same
Most
Robert Downey
Swedish
Jr.?"
thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
So like people think, oh, like people aren't color. Like I guess I am really like colorblind here. Like I really couldn't tell. But I think it's interesting because like if you could play it convincing enough, yeah, I don't think you break the fourth wall. You don't break the immersion. Like I was convinced. I genuinely believed it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to aisle. I'll go to Sprout, then I'll go to Wick, right? But I do want to reply to you, Scott. I got a lot of things to say to you as always. But please, aisle.
I'm pretty much in agreement with Lactoid. I'm like, there's a conflicting between me. There's like a
That
man.
Robert Downey
of two
Jr. is
minds
black.
because-
Is that what you're in agreement with?
No, about one of his earlier statements. One of his earlier statements that there's this struggle between meritocracy and I guess the culture war, like things of that nature. I guess you could say. Whereas like you don't want people just putting people in roles that they shouldn't have just for the specific express purpose of being woke, like in the Lord of the Rings. Then they made like one of the dwarf princesses black for some reason that made no sense apparently due to lore, and that would break the lore, and it would not make sense and probably not be that good. However, I do think what Wick was saying, like if there was like a guy who a white guy who could convincingly play MLK, and he was the best actor for the job, and we can prove that he was the best actor for the job, I would say, oh, okay. I mean, we had Hamilton, which is a majority black cast, so, featuring roles of like several presidents and founding fathers who were all historically and notoriously white people. So I mean, if you can make it entertaining and actually have them, carry a role with such weight and gravitas that you can actually believe for a moment that Alexander Hamilton can actually rap and like have like a decades-long beef with Aaron Burr that leads into like a rap beef gone wrong and like a shooting at the duel. Like if you can actually believe that because they made it so good on Broadway. Yeah, I can see like a white guy that kind of looks like him, like like he's
Like Wick.
black passing, he's
You
probably
can see,
mixed.
yeah.
Yeah, like Wick.
I think
He's
you
like
missed the
he's
point of
probably
Hamilton.
mixed. He's
Like Sean White.
So Hamilton was intentionally cast that way,
Mm.
right? Because they wanted to represent America as it is now, right? Not because they're just saying, hey, Hamilton's a Hispanic dude now. They were literally
Biggest
doing this intentionally.
SJWs are pretty
Wait,
white. but-
America's mostly not
just
black.
Hamilton's also mostly not black.
I thought it was a mostly black
very-
cast.
no, it's a
that's
very
what
mixed
we just
cast.
said. Oh.
No.
Okay, I'm gonna
It's
count
not.
up the cast,
How
and
many
unless
black-
it's 13%,
Let's go
I'm
through
gonna
and find
pitch
the
a
blacks.
fit.
Okay, we'll
It's
just
gonna
go
be
through,
exactly
find every
13%
black
cast.
hiding in there. We'll get
Yeah,
them.
You're
if
gonna
there's
pitch a fit.
14% black people, I can't boycott the whole thing. It's not accurate.
Yeah,
So,
but but because Hamilton wasn't black. Okay, he was
I
white.
like that phrase, notoriously white. This is how I would describe Lactoid and Wick.
God damn.
For that. Let's
The
go.
Swedish don't erase my
I'm
identity.
erasing you. I'm erasing you again. So
So many people
Like,
say, "Are
we
you
was
from Switzerland?"
Vikings in here.
Oh.
We was Vikings in here. Like I'm erasing you too, Lactoid. I'm sorry. We was Vikings.
Wow.
I'm an original Viking. Okay.
We were Viking. Whatever.
Let's go to our friend Sprouticus and then Wick.
All right. So from what it sounds like here, it sounds like Doobie, you're willing to trade out an A-rated movie, like absolutely fantastic. Actually, let's make it S-rated, right? For an S-class movie, for like a C-class movie. But
It's a little bit weird
the
that
race
if
was
you're
the race was
assuming-
right. The race
It's a little
was
bit
right
sus
in the
that you're assuming
C-class
that
movie.
if the actor isn't a white guy, it's gonna be a bad movie. It's really fucking weird.
No, I'm not making that assumption. But
Ask
what I'm
me- hey,
saying,
if we swap out this actor
what I'm
for
saying,
a
what I'm
non-white
saying,
person, it's gonna be a
Doobie,
bad
what
movie.
I'm saying is that the director is going to pick the best actor, the one that
That's
makes
not
it
what they always
entertaining.
do.
But
It-
then they're
there's-
going to
okay,
take the fall for it
that
when
is
it
not-
comes
okay,
to
no,
they're going to
stop,
take the
please.
fall for it when it comes to
No,
sales.
stop.
Why
Because
stop?
a lot of
I was
times,
in the
a
middle
lot
of
of
a
times,
point.
a lot of
You're
times
trying
they
to
will
interrupt me. Now
choose
you're going no stop.
specifically, like an A-lister, right, to get the movie publicity. Right? It's like they do this all the time. Like we shouldn't assume that he's the best person for the job just because he has a fucking job.
But I'm not saying that he's the best person for the job. But what I am saying is I'm going to give you. So there's an S-lister, right? There's an S-class movie if this actor plays. He's not the right race, but it's going to be an S-class movie.
Not a good
It's going to
actor in
make
the
it. It's going to make a statement. And then there's a C-class movie, but the race is
Is
right.
this a JRPG
Which one are you going to
phone
choose?
game?
He is the right race, by the way. He's just not the right ethnicity. He's not,
He's not the right
the
race.
right
Oh, yeah,
type
sorry,
of white.
He's not the right ethnicity.
Fidel
Okay,
Castro's
so
not
the
white.
C-class,
Yeah,
the C-class.
Fidel Castro
So the
was white.
C-class,
No, he's
actor is it's gonna be a C-class movie. Is the
Fidel Castro
correct
was a
ethnicity?
light-skinned Hispanic man.
Which one are you gonna
It's
choose?
the John Legalismo. The John Legalismo.
Like saying that-
John,
like saying
don't
that,
forget the Alamo.
Like saying that like light-skinned Africans are white. Like what the fuck are you talking
He's well, okay. If you're white, hold on. If race is a social construction and you're white passing, how are you just not white?
He's still
about?
not willing to
That's
answer
not
my
how
question.
this works.
He's
Why-
also
but-
mostly
hold on, I kinda-
Spanish.
I kinda-
Why is that? Why is that? Hold on.
wait,
Why
stop.
is this
Hold
not
on,
how
hold
this
on, hold on,
works?
Wait, I want to give Sprout. I gotta be honest. I blocked out like the end of your statement because it was really tough.
Wow.
But maybe ask me the question, and I promise to answer directly.
Okay, so you've got two actors. One of them is going to make an A-class movie. One is going to make a C-class movie. These are the two remaining actors you have to choose. The one that's going to make the A-class movie is not the correct race, ethnicity. What do you want to say? The one that's going to make the C-class movie is the correct ethnicity, right? Or is the correct race? Which one are you going to choose based off the options you have?
Yeah, I think the fact that you need to construct this crazy fucking hypothetical to defend this
It's not a crazy hypothetical. I've
It is.
always
Nah, you're
argued.
pivoting,
Hollywood
Doobie.
is
No, I
full-
know.
Hollywood
I've
is
been
full
arguing the
of
entire
struggling
time.
actors who would
Pivoting.
die for this fucking
No,
role.
I'm not
okay?
pivoting.
He's
I
Say, hey,
running.
no, we're
When
saying
none of those exist.
Doobie
We're
is.
imagining a world where if you don't hire the white guy, you're gonna have a bad movie. Would you rather not hire the
I
white
did not say that.
That's
What I've been
basically what you're
arguing
saying.
is
Yes,
that
it
you're
is.
gonna. What I've been arguing is the director should choose the best person for the job, and you're
Is
saying
that
no,
how-
they shouldn't choose.
Is
the
that
best
how
person for the
Hollywood
job.
works? Is Hollywood works?
I'm
is
saying
like,
that's how it should work.
but
Well,
it
it does
doesn't.
for
But
male
hold on,
roles.
hold on.
It works for male roles. For
literally-
female roles, it's whoever
It-
sucks the best dick. But
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
what, Me Too
don't
didn't happen.
endorse-
Me
I
Too
do
didn't
not-
fucking happen.
Oh my
guys?
god.
Terry
Your mic
Crews-
is
Terry
peaking
Crews
like
taught us as
crazy.
a male probably
Time
Your
to
mic is
up,
peaking
man.
like crazy, Scott. And that's not how Hollywood works, right? Hollywood works on who they think
Denying
is
Me
most
Too now.
most marketable, right? Which doesn't mean they're the best actor, right? That's two different things. One, who's the most marketable, and who is based on connections, right? The connections that people make either through going to
Like
events,
physical
getting to know,
connections.
getting. Oh my god! No need to interrupt me every goddamn second, okay? All right. It doesn't work through like, oh well, we've looked at all these actors, right? We've lined them all up, right? And then we've scientifically balanced like who is like the best one for this role, has all the right mix of experiences, right? To have this to make this a fantastic movie. That's never how it works, right? And we really can't even expect directors to do that. Like that would be insane to actually have them do that, because that's actually too much. If that was the case, then we wouldn't have like fucking Ezra Miller, who was playing the Flash, right? Like you could have found a better person to play that role who also doesn't like abuse people or whatever the fuck, right? Like this
He's
is the
kinda
thing that
playing
happens.
Flash in real life now, right?
Oh, yeah, right. He's running. But that's not how Hollywood works. So to say that, if you don't hire the right guy, in some certain cases, you might not have the best movie. That's nonsense. You can find an actor, an amazing actor for whatever ethnicity it is, that can play that role as well, right? You just have to actually look for them. That's what we're asking. Let them in the door, and then they can become a household name. And then next time you have a role, right, a black role or whatever it is, right? Then these individuals are there. Then you can pick them up. So hon, I'm gonna get Scott. I'm gonna get back to you. Don't worry, Scott. Scott, don't worry. I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to
Playing a
take
white
care
guy.
I'm going to take care of you
white.
later. All right. So, Spartacus, are you done? Your point that I got to go to Wick.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not going to convince Doobie one way or the other. It's just going to, obviously it's just going to, he's going to bring up the farthest, which he already has. He's going to bring up the farthest, which he already has in chat, saying that Black Panther should be played by Tom Cruise, and going that far, which is not what I'm saying whatsoever. Tom Cruise is not going to be the best person to play Black Panther.
Black Panther's too far for you.
Tom Cruise is not going to be the best person to play Black Panther.
Why not? It's a great actor.
Because Tom Cruise does not play Black Panther. Like it's a complete.
He's an action star.
I understand that he's an action star, but
why wouldn't he be great at Black Panther?
Look at the difference between the two movies. Watch Top Gun and watch Black Panther. It's not the same acting skills.
Tom Cruise has been in fucking dozens of action films. They're not all Top Gun.
Oh my gosh, you're right. And
there's no reason.
No matter which.
There's no reason, and he's an accomplished actor. He's been in the industry for decades. There's no reason you couldn't replace him replace Chadwick Boseman with him.
You need to make him look. You need to make him look.
Look, before this goes down to
why not just
this is
stick
so
with
stupid.
Not the argument I'm making.
Castro is a white Spanish descended person.
He's not white.
James Franco's grandfather is Portuguese. Like he's like basically the same racial and ethnic makeup as Castro.
It is very very important, right? Like, look, we need to be more inclusive. The Hollywood as an industry does absolutely need to be more inclusive. It needs to diversify the people it looks at. It needs to stop being so incestuous, right, with who it hires at, and it absolutely needs to give more roles to people of color, to people who've been historically shut out. But that cannot be the defining thing when it comes to these things. Look, acting, as like by definition, is playing something you are not. You are not this person. You are playing a role, and you're trying to present this role in the best way, most entertaining way possible, the most artistic way possible, depending on the role, right? So again, like I hear you, Prime. Just real quick, I hear you, Prime, about needing more people in these roles, but that cannot. It should be a consideration, but it cannot be the sole consideration. It has to be something we look at, but it can't be something that we if you don't look like the role, right, or if you're not from the same background as the role, then you can't play in this role, because that is going to hurt minorities more than anyone.
Right?
Right, but that's where it goes. Like that's how it comes across. And to address Fabian real quick, so this whole idea of white erasure is silly. I'm an American guy. I'm a white guy. You can tell. I'm a nice guy, but I'm white. I'm not being erased by any of this. This isn't erasing me in any way, shape, or form, right? I don't suddenly not have a culture. I don't know who I am. Oh God, no, none of that. I'm pretty staunchly me, right? I've not been erased. None of this is erasing me or attacking me. I don't need like some sort of outside identity outside of who I am.
Yeah, we get it. You
who
have
I
no
am.
culture. Got it.
That's
Move
cool.
on.
No,
That's cool,
I'm
but
not.
you
I'm
were
not a
just saying you
stereotype, and I don't need to stereotype myself to have some sense of self-worth or meaning.
That's cool.
And whoever does that,
That's cool.
that's a little weird. But
Okay.
That you're coping right now.
So
You're coping right now in your own name. You put white. I'm okay? Question mark.
Because it's funny.
You are a little bit.
So I'll
cool.
finally respond to our friend Scott, who is what? Were you drinking milk just then? Right? Were you trying to make a point?
No, I'm on keto right now. I've been on keto for a couple weeks. I'm just drinking water and black coffee.
No, I'm just messing with you. All right, yeah. But the role that I'm making is quite simple. It's quite simple, right? Like,
did you say white simple?
I heard that too.
You got that on your brain, don't you?
Jesus Christ, you fucking racist.
Yeah, no. It's quite simple. Like, I don't mind like roles being like necessarily like race swapped. Like it's not a problem for me. But when you do so, I think it's best if you are trying to one, either be inclusive or like try to have a for like artistic reasons, right? There, we said before about white MLK, there is an actual artistic reason why you would do that, right? Like you could actually come up with a movie where that actually makes sense and it adds to the movie. You could do that, right? I think it would actually be super interesting exercise. But it's
I want to see Morgan
but this
Freeman as
idea,
Professor X. But who's with me?
Oh, God, that
would be dope as fuck.
Would be awesome,
right?
But there, maybe we could come up with a reason to do that. We might be able to. We sat down and thought about it, right? But this idea of like the best actor, this is like the meritocracy bullshit, right? Oh, we're just going to own meritocracy, as if James Franco is necessarily like chosen because he is literally the best person to do this, right? Like how could we have chosen everyone else? They looked at all the cases, right? Like all the male actors, and it came up James Franco. Well, what are you gonna do about that? Just them. That's not how Hollywood has ever.
But the question being posed is, how do we think it should work? That's the question being posed.
Yeah, and I'm telling you how
does
it should
Hollywood
work.
work?
I'm literally telling you that
Hollywood should work.
I'm literally in the middle of saying how it should work. That like and to understand that this thing is not a two-way street. Like it's because white people have not been traditionally locked out of Hollywood. You all know this, right? I hope no one's pretending otherwise, right? The reason that's why we have to fight for this types of representation. That's why it feels like a loss for minorities when minorities roles like don't go to them, because it's hard for them to get a foot in the door. It's hard for anyone in Hollywood to get a foot in the door, right? It's very difficult to get into, but it's especially hard if you aren't white. As simply as the case. This isn't a two-way street. It's just not.
And I think
let me respond.
Scott,
let me respond.
No,
It was
you can respond
to me. No, let me respond. I'm
going to respond.
I'm going to respond to PrimeCayes'
Please,
question.
Scott, I'm begging you. Please, Scott, you didn't give me anything for my fucking birthday. Please, I'm begging you.
It's okay. I got you tulip.
Okay, hold on, Jimmy. Do you have something quick to say? Very quick, and then
One
Scott.
second.
I got you tulip bar for your birthday.
I think I would just like you to, in your explanation of Prime, just explain why it seems like you have a problem with white erasure, but it seems like you're pushing Hispanic erasure through your argument.
And you already erased, and Scott already erased a white person. He erased Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler isn't German. He's Austrian-Hungarian, right? Yet you called him like talking about looking for a German.
Not Hungarian.
Whatever,
so,
Austrian. He was born in Austria-Hungary, so I don't know. But
so let me respond to what you're saying. First of all, many years as of late, Black people have been overrepresented in films, and the LGBT have been overrepresented in films. So the idea that it's just based off the statistics in America, they've been overrepresented. What has been underrepresented in films actually is Americans. Americans have been underrepresented as a whole because of so many British and Canadian actors that we bring in. See, the fact of the matter is that you're playing identity politics about percentages. And even when you get the appropriate percentages, it's still not enough because you have to engage in racist, minority focused identity politics, very much like Hitler of you, right? Engaging in this Volkish identity of like how we're going to play our political game.
Hitler,
it's very Hitlerian and fascist.
I don't erase him.
But if we want to engage with what I actually said, what I'm talking about is that you have a double standard, a racist double standard, where you think ethnicity all of a sudden matters, and that's important for like a standpoint epistemology perspective of certain ethnicities, so long as they fit in your identity groups that you believe are underrepresented, even though statistically they're not, so you're factually wrong, or that they have a harder time, even though statistically it's easier for them to get jobs, so you're factually wrong. But because of the history, the historical analysis of how in the past they've been wrong, so we need to write it now with statistical, fixing and equity.
One said that.
I call that sombrero capitalism, because you're a racist engaging in this bullshit numbers game. When what I want to do is I want stories to be told, and I want good stories to be told, and I want everyone's stories to be told. If we're going to be a melting pot of America, then we should tell everybody's story. And the fact of the matter is that Alina is the title of the movie about Alina Fernandez, and Alina Fernandez checked off on all of the actors. They were not going to move forward unless she accepted the roles as they were. So you're talking about the person the movie is about and based around, and the person playing her father, she agreed James Franco would be good for, and an overwhelming majority of the cast is Hispanic. But you only care about ethnicities when it's minority ethnicities, and not care at all about ethnicities when it's so-called white people, because you don't care whether or not white people are connected to their culture.
The other fucking point that you made that was annoying. Well, so many things you've said.
Well, it's just me combating your racism. It's annoying to racists.
Doobie, thank you for your kindly gifting that sub. It wasn't. So I love how Scott is trying to pin this on black people. Black people somehow erased white people, right? They had all these ethnicities before.
Pivot,
right?
deal with the points.
Whatever. Nope. This is exactly what you're implying, right? That black people and leftists, right? Like
exactly what I'm implying. You're mind reading now.
Whatever. Shut up. It's my turn to talk, so I'm talking. Thank you. So that's somehow this was taken away from white people. The multiculturalism took it away from white people. That's exactly what you fucking said. Exactly what you said. Roll back the VOD, right? You said because of multiculturalism, white people have been foisted on white people. They've lost their European identities. That's exactly what you fucking said. Roll back the fucking VOD. Any which way.
Well, now you just changed what you said.
Shut up. Hey, I'm fucking talking. Not you. If you need assistance, let me know. I will assist. Okay. Any which way. It wasn't white people or leftists or black people or some sort of external group that forced this on white people. It simply was race relations in America. Race relations, with white people being opposed to other races within these race relations. That's what erased white identity in that way. That you simply brought people in from these groups. Italian Americans were Italian at one point. Irish Americans were Irish when they were opposed to whiteness. That they got gathered into this vague idea of whatever whiteness is in America, and then suddenly they're white. Suddenly we don't talk about these things anymore. We don't. Their culture isn't celebrated in the same way, right? Beyond what people are holding on to, like St. Patty's Day or whatever the fuck, right? Whiteness is opposed to all other races, and so that ends up erasing the unique qualities of white individuals within themselves, within their own groups. That's how it works in this country. But it wasn't black people. It wasn't certainly anyone else that did that to white people. It wasn't multiculturalism that caused that. Now I'm done.
Okay, real quick. I just want to respond to that. You're such a racist, and you're so infected with Marxist philosophy that you heard what I said and magically created an argument that I said that black people did this. I never said that. And I never said that it couldn't be white people and race relations that did this. But you see the world through a dichotomy of identity politics, where you immediately assume that I am a representation of my racial category, and that I'm arguing against your racial category as black people. And you need to fix your fucking self, because it's disgusting.
I
You're a
absolutely
fucking
don't assume
racist for
that.
engaging that
I
way.
don't.
And
I
your
don't
own behavior
absolutely-
proves it.
I absolutely don't. Didn't say that.
You
part.
created arguments
But
that didn't
whatever.
exist
You
because of your
literally just
racial
created an
framework.
argument that didn't exist. You just did that right now. You just did that right this second. That I thought like you were opposed to black people in your
You
argumentation.
keep blaming me saying black people did this. I never mentioned that at all, but that's the
Yeah.
world you live in because
Yeah.
you're a Volkish.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
pre-Nazi.
Yeah.
You're the closest thing to a Nazi on this panel.
The closest thing to
Can we stop it? Can we
Right?
stop using Nazi
racist.
for everything? Can
Let's
we
go
stop
to,
it, please?
Let's go to Lactoid. And
Why?
thank you
They're
so
both
again for the
Volkish.
kind sub. To
Point makes
Spaniard.
sense.
So my question, I guess, a question for you, Prime, because there seems to be two lines of thought here. Like the one line of thought that I think a lot of people in this panel, including myself, are taking is what makes you suited to play a role in actually playing that role. But you seem to also be adding sort of the secondary point, which is like that's one consideration. But the other consideration here is that there's a history of oppression, and that sort of like affirmative action, like we need to like do something to make these roles more open to people of color, right? And so, and this is, I'm reading directly off the Hollywood Diversity Report, right? So it's only been getting more diverse basically over the past 10 years. But as of 2018, the white share of all top film roles was 69.1% in 2018, which is a significant decline from the 77% figure noted for 2017. Meanwhile, blacks were overrepresented among all top. I'm reading verbatim off the study. Meanwhile, blacks were overrepresented amongst all top film roles in 2018, enjoying an increase in their share in these roles from 9% to 14.9% overall, which is significantly higher than the population of black people in America. So my question for you then is, if we're going to going off this, well, we want representation, wouldn't you also have to argue, yes, we need less white people as actors, we need less black people as actors, and we should shift all these roles over to Hispanics because that's who we need more of?
Sure, Lacto, and I'll respond to you. See, once again, taking a shot at Scott because Scott doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, right? Scott, made up an argument about percentages. I never said anything about percentages at all, right? Never heard it come out my mouth, but that's where he went because that's what he does. He makes this shit up all the time. So, anyway,
that's a nice try.
I've never said that we should be like trying to match percentages within population. That doesn't make any sense at all. Absolutely not, right? Simply that we need to be making a better effort to let people in from other races, right? And ethnicities, to have them represented, and the stories that we tell, and then the individuals who tell those stories as actors, or maybe directors and stuff too. That yes, there is you need to find a person who can do that role, right? But we have a myopic view of who can do those roles. We end up going back to the same old well of individuals. And again, I think James Franco is a really good actor. I enjoy his roles. I don't enjoy things he might have done in his personal life, but I think he is a fun person to watch on screen. But what happens in these arguments, you've seen it already, is that people will say, "Oh, well, we need to find the best person for that role," implying that James Franco is that. That's not the case at all. You can literally find another white guy who could do a better job, right? Yes, he looks like him, but makeup can do any fucking thing, right? Like Charlize Theron, right, one of the most beautiful women fucking ever, was made to look like terrible, like a horrible individual in the role Monster. Do you remember that? Like, yeah, you can.
I'm with you, but most beautiful woman ever, one of the most beautiful women
in Hollywood. She's Charlize Theron is gorgeous.
If I
Fuck
could.
that shit.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but
I'm gonna. I'll hit back to you. Oh wow!
I want to narrow the question maybe to make it more clear.
Sure.
So basically, the reason what I read out was you have in film in all the top roles, you have black people and white people are overrepresented.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about this, people of color don't have as much equal access. Well, that's not true for all people of color, right? Black people have more than enough equal access. White people have more than enough equal access, right? If we're basing off the percentages of people in those roles. But so I guess, would you be willing to say, like, yes, we should like be giving black and white roles to other people of other
literally just Asians. Asians are the only underrepresented
shut up.
people.
Scott, shut up. I went to
the way they categorize it.
Scott,
they
shut up.
add the numbers.
Oh my god, don't worry, I'll do it for you. All right. But I I wanted to answer your question previously. I was going to get to that, but of course got interrupted. Don't worry, I took care of that for him. All right. I think that's interesting. Again, I'm not talking about putting percentages in, right? Like that's like not what I'm trying to do at all. However, I would say that Black people have gained a lot of ground, a ton of ground within Hollywood, right? And other stories aren't being told as well, right? And there's only so many of these things. These only so many of these films and TV shows that are being made, right? It's actually growing because of streaming, right? More people there's more content and more people have access to that content, whether it be as actors or directors, or whatever, right? So that's increasing, but like not necessarily the mix of individuals who are being part of it. So I just read a story about a Filipino movie that's coming out by like John Choi. Oh, fuck, I forget his name. Joy. Sorry, fuck. I'm gonna mess up his name. But he's a comedian, right? You probably heard him. You've probably seen him before. And he's Filipino, and he's telling a Filipino story. And he's like, I specifically need to get this out there because like I never saw any representation growing up as a Filipino individual, right? And they're underrepresented. Yeah, let's do that. And it might mean that might be some less Black people, right? Like if you like really make that effort, there might be less Black people on screen. But that's okay, especially if we're getting more representation of all these groups, because America is such a mixed bag. So
You know
Yeah,
what?
I just want to
Hey, just real quick.
I want to end this tangent real quick if I could. I think this argument that on that side, I think this argument simply boils down to the affirmative action argument at this point, right? This idea of we have certain like we want certain groups represented more often, and the counter to this is obviously, well, no, we don't want race. Like we can accept that there are non-meritorious reasons why people get ahead, and we're against all those reasons, including non-meritorious considerations such as race. That's what the anti-affirmative action argument would be. And I think that's sort of the argument that's being put forward here, which is like maybe not all actors, like maybe it's true that actors don't get all the positions that they get because of their merit, but it should be based on merit, and adding this extra non-merit factor in that now we have to consider as well. Why is it helping the situation?
Lactoid. My question to you then is, right, like if you're saying you're against all those non-meritorious aspects, right, and you think that Hollywood, and I believe that you would want Hollywood to have like more of a mix of individuals, right? Like you would, I can say that about you, right? That you would like people to have more of a mix. How, like, you may quibble about how it's done, but you'd be that would be a good thing in your eyes, Lactoid?
So I take I personally take the position that people laugh at, which is I don't care about the race of the person as long as they can play the role effectively. Like you could have Hollywood or other organizations such as like the NBA who are like overwhelmingly Black. Like you could have a situation like this, and I'm a massive like basketball fan. I don't care. I just don't care that I don't see white people when I look at the fucking court, because why should I?
Why should
you're represented everywhere else?
Yes, exactly, because you're fucking represented everywhere else.
Okay, no, maybe I don't. Maybe I couldn't predict if I would care if I didn't see white people, but I guess I don't care now, and I can't think of like an ontological reason why I should care.
Of course, because again, you don't have that experience. Like growing up, I had that experience. Things have changed. Things have improved. But I had that fucking experience. Don't worry, Scott. I'll unfree you. I'll free you soon after Wick. But I had that experience growing up, not having a representation, trying to find it anywhere that I could, and it meant a lot to me when I did find it, and the places that I was interested in, right, like comic books at the time. Like I actually did care about that stuff, because it sucked, right, not having heroes that looked like me. It actually did. You didn't have to deal with that, and that's okay, right? But like,
so in a situation like
this, to say that like you are against those non-meritorious actions, like or reasons why people get in those roles, well then what are you going to do about it? That's my question to you. What is it you're going to do about it? Affirmative action, and this is basically affirmative action, fair enough, right? But affirmative action is a way to actually tackle that, right? To say that even if in a case where like if Lactoid is a director here, and Lactoid's not a racist guy, I don't believe that. But he's looking around for individuals, but he like, well, I know James Franco, I know he could crush this role, so I'm going to hire James Franco. But if you, it's simply because that you knew him. If you knew some other people, you'd hire them as well. But you don't, because that's how race works. You kind of get locked into these things. So we're trying to give people incentives to look outside of their usual social circles and find individuals that'll be great, like a fantastic discoveries. But an effort has to be made to do that. If we just go along to get along, then it's never going to happen. So respond to that, and we'll go to Wick and Scott.
For any kind of role in a massive like production, which I'm assuming it is, considering that James Franco is going to be part of it, you obviously should cast multiple people, or you should like try out multiple people and see how they fit the role before you pick somebody. And it should be based on like, this person plays this very convincingly. You make an interesting point. Like I still don't agree with it, for several reasons, but I can see the argument of like, for children's superheroes or like specific like children's icons growing up, you want that representation. This is a movie about Fidel Castro, like a mass murdering dictator. So my question is like, well, but like we don't want anybody to make this person an icon or like to feel represented by this person. People should despise this person. And if you look at Doobie's,
so it should be played by a white person.
Your Western colonialist narrative.
If you look at Doobie's screen right now, look at his skin. Okay,
he's pointing to his non-white skin.
That is a white man.
Okay, compare your skin to his skin. You're a white man. Scott's a white man. He is not a white man.
No. I am pale as fuck. I agree. Like, he lives in a warmer climate, so he's not going to be like me. Like, I don't get outside enough. Look at him.
He's not a streamer.
Okay, if he was a streamer, he'd be just as white as me.
We're subject to the oppression that whites have been inflicting upon the other races for fucking centuries.
No, Doobie, get outside. White people who spend time outside look like this. They don't look like us, right? They look like that.
Let's go to our friend.
Okay, I'll tell you first off.
Wick and then Scott, please.
Yeah. Prime, I'll tell you first off, like, if I was going to cast a movie with the role of an awesome panelist host, an awesome host of a panel, I would cast you because you're my buddy and you could be represented in this space. I would do that for you, right? I would absolutely do that for you. When we talk about tools, though, because you're right, doing nothing isn't an option here. It's just not, right? But we have to look at, that doesn't mean that affirmative action is the way to go. Like, it might work, kind of, right? Like, I could get to Walmart on a horse, right? I could do that. It would work, but it's not the most effective or efficient way to go about this. It'll have some other problems. So I think that it's pretty unfair to say that, well, we need to do something, so obviously we have to do this. No, obviously we don't. There are other ways to tackle these issues. I think that when we look at this specific situation, right, this specific movie, this specific casting decision, there is nothing wrong with it. There is nothing inherently wrong with it. And again, if everyone in the movie, if all the Cubans portrayed in the movie were a bunch of white guys, right, that would be a problem. But as far as I know, at least, that's not the case. And when it comes to this specific role, allowing someone who isn't a Cuban national to play Fidel Castro, again, I think that we are extrapolating a lot of bad information out of it.
The best person for the role.
Best person, I think he was good enough. Right,
he was good enough that it's someone better.
So like, if he's the absolute best, like you said, it's not reasonable. It's not reasonable to look for the absolute best, right? Like, but
if the directors look, they might have found someone better.
They might not have.
They might not have. True.
For their budget, for their time constraints, for all these other factors that play into it.
Budget. You could find someone cheaper. You could literally find someone cheaper than James Franco, right?
Sure, but you could also probably find people that cost more.
Yeah, you could find a person.
Do you think it's reasonable to allow like white people to? So even when you're like looking at like making the casting decision, right? Like sending out your fucking advertisements or whatever to get people interested in auditioning for this role. So do you think it's reasonable to send that to white people at all, given that this is a minority?
Sure, if they're known actors, I don't see it being unreasonable. No,
I think what's happening right now is something that I've seen happen like a lot of the last few years, where we have like the woke lefties, right, and the colorblind quote unquote righties, combining to some fucking like blob monster that is totally
Oh, come on, you know me better than that. I am not a
dismissing the
woke
concerns of
lefty or a
any
colorblind
racial
righty.
group that isn't black or white, right? And now suddenly all the non-black Hispanics the non-black minorities become white. The Indians are white, the Asians are white, et cetera, because you just don't give a fuck about race, right? Of course. But I think that I think you'd agree in other contexts, right, with other historical figures, race does matter sometimes.
But
And
I
that's
said
okay.
over and
It's
over
okay for us to
again.
acknowledge that race does matter sometimes, and this I
I've
think is a
said
case where
over and
race
over
matters.
again. I've said over and over again on this panel, right, that if all the people being cast were just some American white dudes from Appalachia, right, it would be a problem. But that
Why?
I guarantee you that's not going to
Why
be
is
the
that a
case here.
problem? But this
It's a
one
matter of
this
scale, right?
why?
Like these things are a matter of
Why is
scale.
allowing white people to
Why is it a
audition for
matter of
this
scale?
role at
Because
all?
when you
Okay.
have too much of something, right? When you have too much of
He's
something
the
that
main
does
fucking
harm.
character. It's Fidel Castro. He's the only one in this cast that people don't
Yo,
know.
I don't
He's
care
not
if
the
it was
main
a
character.
woman playing Fidel Castro. If they got
You'd be
Charlize
okay with a
Theron to
woman
play
playing
Fidel
Fidel
Castro,
Castro.
I think it would be
Okay,
fine if that's the decision they made. Yes.
I think you are woke scolding yourself right now. Okay, I think
Why
you
is
have
that
your
woke
I
scolding?
think you have
Exactly.
your fucking flagellants whip out and you're whipping yourself in the back because you're so non-racist, you're so non-problematic.
Yo, this
You
ain't
just replace it
hidden.
because everybody's just interchangeable to you. Nothing fucking matters.
No one believes you
Let's
when
go
you say
to
that.
I don't
let's go
believe you.
let's go to our friend Scott and then Lactoid.
Yeah, so I just want to address a couple of things. First of all, we said that Lactoid does have representation in film and on TV, and that's just a blatant lie because you guys are
Then
using
aisle,
race.
and then aisle.
You guys are using race when it applies to white people, and then when it applies to Hispanics, you want to magically switch to ethnicity. The fact of the matter is that Lactoid is Swedish, and the only representation he has is fucking Avicii and Greta Thunberg. That's it. Okay. The last fucking movie made about a Swedish hero was in 1995 about Alfred Nobel, who, by the way, was kind of a piece of shit in many ways. The second thing is this idea that, like, oh, I'm just white now because I'm white passing, or because I have mostly white ethnicity, but that doesn't magically apply to Fidel Castro. Because here's the fact of the matter: I have freed black slaves on my mother's side and my father's side, as well as runaway black slaves on my mother's side of my DNA. And my people are from Appalachia on my mother's side. All right. They were Melungeon. It's Sioux Indian and freed and escaped
Scott, if you don't
slaves
agree with that,
and
why are you
Irish
propagating
people coming together. Right. So I am a
We
mixture
need
of a
you in
whole
a
bunch
movie.
of things. So
But
I'm a
Scott, if you don't
combination
agree
of a
with
whole
that,
bunch
if you don't
of
agree
things.
with that shit, why are you doing it? You're
What do
saying,
you mean,
hey,
if I don't agree with
you're
that
saying,
shit,
hey,
why are you
no,
doing it?
Make
an argument.
If you pass enough as a white person to lefties, right? You're just white, right? And you're saying this as if you don't agree with that, right?
I'm
But it
pointing
seems like
out
you
the
do.
hypocrisy that there is in
You're the one being the
ethnicity.
hypocrite right now.
No, I'm not being a hypocrite.
You're the one making the lefty argument that he's white passing, so it's okay to portray him as a white person.
I'm not making the argument that I've made the same argument from the beginning that the narrative is what matters, not the ethnicity or the race of the individual. What I'm pointing out is the hypocrisy that all of a sudden ethnicity matters so long as it's the right political group, but white people are just a monolith in America and it doesn't matter what their culture or ethnicity is. That this is the true hypocrisy and racism of the ideas.
Because again, so I would agree with you, and I do agree with you, right? That white people have become like this, like this amorphous blob. If you're white, you're just white. You're not Irish. You're not Scottish. You're not anything else. You're just a white person. I agree, right? And hey, maybe that's not a good thing, right? And I think you'd agree that hey, this isn't a good thing because there's a ton of cultural context, ton of historical value in recognizing these different histories that we have, right? I'd agree with that, but it seems like maybe it's like a spite thing. It seems like because you've had this done to you, into your background, into Lactoid and his background, you just want to apply this to everybody else. Say, hey, if it's done to me, I'm going to do it to you. So it's okay to dismiss Fidel Castro, Fidel Castro's non-whiteness because he's not fucking white. To say he's a white guy because he's white passing, and to have a white actor portray him. It just seems like you're making an argument at this
spite
right
here.
now.
There's no spite here because I don't mind that I don't have like a European culture to cling on to.
You were just mocking
my ethnicity is American. That's what I am because my
You were
ethnicity
just
is
talking
made
about
up of
saying something
my
like that.
my no, literally that is my ethnicity because I have so many different racial ethnic groups mixed into me and racial groups mixed into
So
me
why would you say
that
that Wick
I'm an
doesn't have a
American.
culture? Why would you say that Wick doesn't have a culture?
Because he literally said that he refuses to
I don't.
connect
Not
to any
American?
Yeah.
of his culture, if any of his culture in any way,
What's
shape, or form,
American culture?
and
What does
didn't
that mean?
claim
Not
an American
American?
culture. He claimed white, which is a racial category. He claimed the fucking
Wick,
census
is
as
this
his
true?
culture.
Wick, is your culture just white? Is that
Look, I grew up, okay, for the first 7 years of my life. I grew up in England, then I moved to Florida, then I moved to Hawaii, then I moved to all these other
Wow.
places. What culture am I? I don't know. You know, I'm a military culture, maybe, I guess, perhaps. But yeah, it's silly to just claim I have a specific culture. I'm very multicultural.
Case in point, he made it for
You're
me.
much.
British. Okay, it explains the teeth. All right, lactoid. That's okay, buddy.
That's mean.
Well, it's mean. I'm just messing with my good friend there. You want one? Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. I got some background noise from. Where's that staticky noise come?
It's not me.
Yeah,
Not me.
there's a statically noise.
Not me. Yeah, I
someone-
hear it.
Yeah.
Doobie.
Okay, and then me, and then me.
I'll
And then
consider
me.
It's Isle.
mute yourself. Maybe it's you. Not sure.
Where?
It was Doobie and then Isle.
It was Doobie. Then
It
okay.
was not me.
Okay.
That was not me.
I mean, I
All right.
muted you and it went away, but okay.
Okay.
So
So we'll go to Lactoid, the most oppressed person on this panel, please.
thank you. I think we should contend after. I think Wick made an interesting point, like what makes a culture. I actually agree that I think it has a lot more to do with upbringing than just like tracing your like genetic ancestry, right? You know, if I, you know, I think I had like growing up, I had like a different experience, like you know, going to Sweden all the time and stuff, and I think that is more credible than just saying, oh, I have this percentage of genes that happen to be from a particular area. But we can talk about that. But before we leave the topic, Prime, I thought about what you said, and I wanted to bring up. You talked about how representation matters, especially when you're growing up. And I said that although I disagree on some levels, like I can understand that argument, but I also wonder if this is a problem that is being imposed by the more leftist cultural forces in this country, right? So one of the things that constantly comes up every Halloween is this idea of you can only dress up in the Halloween costumes that fit your race. And if, and don't culturally appropriate, don't dress up. And when Moana came out, there was advisories saying, don't let your little girls dress up like Moana if they're not Polynesian, right? And Majid Nawaz came on and he talked about this, and he said something that I think is really interesting.
That? I don't know who that is.
Majid Nawaz, he's a really interesting guy. He was part of a terror network in his earlier days.
Went to
And then
prison in Egypt.
He went to prison in Egypt, and then he founded, afterwards he was reformed, and then he founded a counterterrorism network that tries to de-radicalize people, away from white supremacy, away from like radical, beliefs. Really interesting guy to listen to. And one of the things he said is, he pushed back against this, and he said, when little girls dress up like Moana, when they're white even, it means their role models aren't just white people. What's wrong with having a white child having a role models who's not a white child and wanting to dress like them or be like them? And I almost kind of feel as though when we say like, well, we need people to fit particular racial groups, so like everybody can have somebody within their particular racial group that they can identify with and they can associate with. My question is why? Why can't we have people associating and identifying with people from across all different racial groups? Why can't I have a role model in Black Panther just as much as a Black person can? Or you have as much of a role model in like fucking Green Lantern.
Hal Jordan.
Yeah, isn't there sort of like a sort of racial like separation that like this inherently argues for?
So I'm going to ask you a question. And we are going to go to Ty afterwards because Ty also had his hand up. But I will answer your question. But before I jump to that one, you said something previous about Fidel Castro that I did not think I answered very seriously. But like, in the case you said, well, while it's understandable that among children's media, you would want to have diverse representations, people can see themselves. Castro is not a person you want anyone to be looking up to. But that's not the point of having Castro being Cuban. One, it's just that.
Bear back. I gotta use the restroom.
For sure. It's just that for a person of Cuban descent, or someone close to that, I don't know, right? They could have insights into that role that make it better, right? In ways that James Franco, not because James Franco is a bad actor, but just because he's not part of that culture, so he wouldn't even think of these things, right? You know how so many like famous movie lines are made up on the spot, right? Like they're not in the script. People add that in. Something that happens in terms of like culture, right? Like cultural references that like a director might have understood. Let's say it was a white writer that came up with it, right? A perfectly good white writer, but they just didn't know, and they didn't put that thing in. But the actor, they have an understanding about this culture and like this will go well here, and it adds to the film, right? So and then secondly, while we shouldn't be inspired by Castro, certainly not, right? We shouldn't be inspired by him. But a person who watches the film and is of that ethnic descent might be inspired to become an actor by watching a person play that role. You know, I see myself on the screen, so I can be there, right? Like I can be a part of it. So that's how I would answer that.
I want to. Can I address both?
Sure.
Okay. I'll address the second point first. I guess what I'm arguing is that the fact that it would inspire, like, I think maybe we should be changing the cultural framework here so that like I could be inspired to be an actor if I see
Exactly.
Black Panther, right? If I see a Black person on screen doing an amazing job, and I might say, well, that guy's fucking awesome. Like I want to be an actor now. It shouldn't be like I only am inspired to become an actor if I see like someone who looks like me, like someone who's white. And I think we're sort of taught culturally to only appreciate people who look like us, which I think is a problem and something we should move away from.
I agree.
Okay,
and I'm going to respond to exactly that. Remember, Ty and Wick, I see your hands.
And the first, the first thing you said, I wanted to clarify. You said something along the lines of, someone of Cuban ancestry may have unique insights. When you bring that up, it's interesting because the defense of this, you're making a merit argument now. You're saying that there could be something about this guy's racial background that makes him play the role better with more merit. And so I agree with you that if you're trying to doubt different people and you bring on somebody who's like ethnically Cuban who has his kind of like cultural background and is able to like on the spot like ad lib and really gets it, like these should count towards the merit of bringing this guy on. Absolutely, because this person's like playing the role more effectively. But again, all we're saying is that the person who plays the role the best should get it. If their cultural background it makes them play a better role, that's points for them. But if James Franco comes in and he's so good that he's able to play a better role even without that cultural background, then obviously he should still get the role too, right?
I would say that there are. I say that like this dynamic that you're setting up is generally like outside of reality because this is not how Hollywood works, and that they're looking for like the person that plays it like the absolute best, especially when we're going for an A-list actor, right? Like he is absolutely an A-list actor, and he is well known, and you take him for his name. Those are a lot of other considerations completely outside of his acting ability that gets him there, right? That gets him there. Did he even have to read for the script? I actually don't know. I don't know, but he did he actually have to read for it? Because a lot of times they don't, right? It's like I want this person. I think this person might be great, and they don't even have to read for it. You just will present the script to you, and if you accept it, then you're in, right? That works, especially on the Hollywood. Oh, nope. We got a whole line of individuals. Right? We got Ty. We got
I'll prove you wrong later.
We got Wick. Sure. I'm not sure if you had your hand up. And then Scott. Okay. And we got to move quickly. But Lactoid, I got to answer your first question that you had towards me. Right. So in terms of the costumes, right? I think it's a very nuanced conversation, a lot longer one than we have with the time remaining. But quickly, my thoughts. I agree with you when in terms of like little kids, like I want to see little kids participating in other cultural artifacts. That's great, right? I want kids to be inspired by people who don't look like them, right? That's great. 100% with you. And so something as innocent as Moana, right? I think that kind of pushback saying that you shouldn't wear it, I think that's wrong, but there's a reason why that happened, right? I think it's an overcorrection because I think you'll agree with me that other individuals, right, oftentimes white individuals, have used these people's identities in a corrosive manner, right? Like you've seen like the fraternity parties, right, where people are in blackface and they're pimps, right? Or like they're prisoners or whatever the fuck, right? But in blackface, those people aren't valuing the culture of African Americans, right? We can understand that. I think what we're seeing there is in the terms of costume tends to be a huge overcorrection because we don't want to see shit like that, right? Or when like like you got people who are white who are like doing like the war cry, the name of the war crying, and yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Like we don't want to see shit like that, but we do want to see little kids like dressing up as like their favorite cartoon characters and getting that sort of appreciation. So I think there's a nuanced conversation there. But yeah, all right. So let's go to our friend Ty Isle. Sorry, Ty Wick Isle.
Yeah, so I apologize for being like really quiet during this whole thing, but I had to like I'm a little tripped up, and I actually have to go like a level down from this conversation because I'll put it this way: a number of arguments have been made regarding the idea of people are insulted or upset or offended because somebody is like crossing lines from one racial group to another, or like appropriating a role from another group. And like I kind of get that, but I've got a serious problem. Even with all the history that I know, what constitutes a people? At what point did the colonists here that were English and French or German or whatever the fuck become white or American? Like, am I white? Am I American? Like, what the fuck am I? And I don't want to be like overly flamboyant with this, but even in the like the all white everything and the all black everything panels that Prime has done, is that I've seen this topic come up. And I don't think anyone has a really good answer for like what constitutes a people. So when someone's like, "Hey, look, like Fidel is like either white passing or white or Hispanic or whatever the hell," like, how do you know? And the problem is like I hate to be that asshole here, but when it just comes down to it for me, is that I don't think anyone has any kind of like real concrete this is that and this is that and this is that. And so I feel like this conversation has to some degree just jumped a whole level where it doesn't make a lot of sense. So if anyone wants to ground that for me, feel free to do so. But I'm sorry. I like I'm having a hell of a time here.
We got to keep moving. So we got to go to Wick, Isle, and Scott. We have like 9 minutes left on this topic.
Sure, I'll be brief. And if you want this to be my closing, it can be my closing here. One of the greatest regret, probably not the right word here, but one of the things I look back on with sadness is when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, right? There was a lot of effort, a huge amount of societal effort to get us to see each other as one people, as human. We're all human, right? There's a huge amount of efforts because that was a problem that a lot of people weren't seen as human. They were seen as other. And we have reversed course entirely and decided that somehow it's time to put each other back in these little specific, hyper-specific boxes. And I think that's one of the greatest mistakes. We're going to be having to fix the same goddamn problems that we already fixed. And I understand it wasn't perfect. I understand that we're still issues. I understand that there are still times where race actually does matter, and we need to take into people's backgrounds into consideration. But we have fetishized it, we have hyperfixated it, and we have misconstrued it to a point where it's doing more harm than good, gang. Look, we should not, right, be looking and casting shade on a director because he wanted to cast someone as Fidel Castro because he doesn't like come from the same exact background as Fidel Castro. It's Fidel Castro. It'll be okay. Calm down. Okay.
All right. Affirmative action equals persuasion. Thank you so much, Wick. Let's go to our friend Isle. I'll if you're talking, we can't hear you. I didn't meet you.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry. That's no, I muted myself because So like John Legalismo, is practicing legalism. That's why I call him such. He thinks that there's only one way to have a good movie about Castro. For someone looking at the picture because I haven't looked at him recently. So this one that is underdue, Fidel Blanco, more like because he's white passing. Um, I would say that actually, I think James Franco could play him quite convincingly. I think that any things to the contrary is just speculation, and we're just like reading the tea leaves. We don't know so far. A trailer hasn't even come out, so we can't be sure. Everyone has been talking about how makeup can make anything happen. It's the magic of Hollywood, Tinseltown, and all. So maybe he'll look super realistic and based as Fidel Blanco, and I think that he should be allowed to do that. Now, something I want to talk about is you know yeah, I think there's a double standard that we have to really think about. Where it's okay to blackwash a character, but it's not okay to whitewash a character. I think that's that's uh, that's hypocritical, and I think that's just going to lead to more problems down the long run as people are going to have like lots of strife and resentment towards each other. I think we should all come together, be as have a colorblind society. We should all have merit-based, meritocracy, and like let actors play the roles that they are best for, and not let wokeism and inflating the numbers of like different people and different LGBT PCNF community members, like just for the sake of it. They should actually be able to be competent in their jobs and in their roles and create a good narrative. And that's where I'll end it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, luckily we don't have much time. I'd have to deal with that too. All right, Scott, you'll get the last word on this, unless you say something terrible, then it'll force me to respond.
Yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead,
you'll
Scott,
probably respond, but it won't be because it's terrible. So my biggest question, and I want to structure this. I don't understand why you want to deny opportunities to Latinos and why you keep arguing to deny opportunities for Latinos, because that's what you've been doing this whole time. Because the fact of the matter is that this is a Sundance film. This is not a Hollywood production. In fact, the director, Miguel Bardem, has never done a film in English as of yet. He's not a big director in terms of this is an Oscar bait and things like that. And you keep saying, well, that's not how Hollywood works. It's all about marketing and things like that and evil capitalism. Except the fact of the matter is that we do have capitalism. It's wonderful. And one of the best things about having James Franco be a part of this film is that it will make sure that a larger, more affluent audience is able to see this film, and it will bring butts in those seats, and it will give such great opportunities to the rest of the cast and the director that are Latinos. And instead, what you want to do is you want to argue about representation, except capitalism is what gives you representation. The beauty and the wonder of the market economy and the ability that we can put an A-list actor there, and that A-list actor can bring eyes and attention to all of these other actors that are outside of Hollywood that haven't gotten the representation that you think that they deserve, and instead shine a light on this and tell beautiful, wonderful stories from Latino perspectives. But instead, you want to deny telling those stories from Latino perspectives, and you want to fix Hollywood, and you want to make sure that we all get the same sombrero capitalism, and that we all watch the same fucking 40 or 50 directors churn the shit from Hollywood, instead of Franco using his clout, if you will, to be able to bring eyes to this and give so many opportunities. I don't understand why you want to deny those opportunities to them, and why you're so racist in your in the way that you approach this previously. Me personally, I believe in representation, unlike you, and I believe in giving opportunities to people that are good, as well as good directors, regardless of their race and ethnicity, unlike you. And I believe in giving opportunities to Hispanics, unlike you.
Well, of course, our friend Scott, right, doesn't disappoint, said a dumb fuck thing, so I guess I'll respond. Yeah, so once again, I didn't say anything about capitalism. You said something about capitalism, making up an argument. What do you know? But
No, I'm just smart enough to understand what you're saying.
But the big issue, right? And the thing that I'm trying, one of the ultimate points I'm trying to get to, is that I want to create to find an actor, right, and to create a career that would equal James Franco, so that the next time we have a film like this, that when the director is looking like taking everything Scott said on face value, which you really should not, but like taking everything on face value, the next time a director
Fucking why
wants
not?
to
I don't lie about this shit.
shut up the next time a director wants to market themselves, right, like if it's purely on like trying to get the widest audience, right, by using that star power, I want there to be a Latin individual that has that star power. Like, oh, of course, I'll think of this individual, right? But that only happens when we start opening the doors to these individuals, and putting them in lead roles, right? You have to get them there, and either they'll maybe they'll be a breakout star, maybe not, but maybe they'll be a breakout star, or maybe that'll be the start for them to getting other roles, so that one day they'll have that stature, and you don't have to go to a white guy to accomplish that very same goal. That's what I'm looking for. Okay.
You're looking for
we'll
someone
move on to our,
with the exact same
next,
star power as James Franco.
Next,
Can I ask you a quick question to you, Prime? We're moving on.
Sure. Quick question. And then we gotta go.
If they're gonna do like a new ABBA movie,
the perfect role for
and they casted like a Swedish guy as like somebody else who's not Swedish, and I started getting
as
like,
not a villain.
Yeah, well, and I get like upset at this. Would you like be on my side, or would you think I'm just kind of being silly?
That like if there's a Swedish actor that could be better,
No.
and they don't cast a Swedish actor, is that what you're saying?
Well, the assumption, well, I don't know their casting process, but the assumption is that there is some Swedish actor out there who probably could, like, you know, have the kind of background cultural understandings to play it better, and they cast like The Rock instead. I don't know, somebody, and like, would you be like upset by this?
Yeah, if it doesn't make sense for the movie. And we
British
argued,
person play Andrew
we argued about a lot of dumb stuff, so I couldn't really get into the nuance. But I think there really is a lot of nuance into these casting decisions. I think it's not easy. That like it's hard to make a one size like fits all rule for these things. So it depends on the film. And like I was trying to say in terms of artistic creativity, are you trying to say like what would ABBA be if like they were Pacific Islanders, like the Rockies Pacific Islanders, right? Like maybe, then maybe that might make sense, but maybe not. They're trying to tell a biopic, or a straight up biopic of ABBA. And I guess they're Swedish. I didn't know their background, but like if they're Swedish, then yeah, you should probably look for beautiful Swedish people, all right, of the pure stock.
I didn't say that.
Okay, all right. So we'll move on to our next. We're moving on to our.
I'm really mad at the Norseman film because they had a British person play the wife of the Norse individual, and that's just not not enough white representation in that film.
Sure, we're moving on to.
Movies have attractive people play ugly people a lot.
We're moving on to our next topic. Okay, all right. So
we need an ugly Pocahontas. Representation matters.
Yeah. That's another thing. Actually, that's a really interesting. Like Scott, that's an honestly interesting point, right? Which finally you managed to get one in. But like talking about beauty standards, there and like representation there.
The movie
a lot of beautiful people in Hollywood playing all kinds of roles, which is why again,
a bunch of ugly people not watching movies and then bombing.
Uggos rise up. Uggos rise up in chat.
We should have
get an F for Uggos in chat.
Bad singers should join bands too. We got to get representation.
Indeed.
So sad that so many of you guys got into the myth that is race.
Let's move on to our next topic. But before then, guys, if you're enjoying this content, if you're enjoying what we're doing here, well then hit that follow button. Hit that follow button right now. Make sure the notifications are on so you're not going live. I do this all the time, 6 days a week. I have these amazing individuals coming through, right, or playing video games, one or the other, right? So if you want to be a part of this community, hit that follow button right now. We'd love to have you. Or if you're watching this later on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and help out the channel with subs and super chats and all that good stuff. It's a huge help. X Social in Twitch chat for our social media. We got On Twitter, where we tweet things. Discord, where we have our conversation. We have a lot of conversations on Discord. Join us in our Discord. We'd love to have you there. And we have our open welcome panels, which we'll have right after this, right? So if you want to join that, join our Discord. We'd love to have you. TikToks, where you find funny videos related to the channel. And YouTube's where you find the VODs. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's go on to the next topic, which is on social media platforms, there is a growing problem in which drug dealers are selling products to children. Some of those children go on to overdose and die. Several new bills in Congress seek to address this, including Sammy's Law. This bill will force platforms to allow parents to track their child's activity through the use of third-party apps. This law, and others like it, have been criticized on privacy grounds. Are you in favor of this bill? Are the privacy concerns overblown? Should we fear unintended consequences, such as these tools being used to track adults? So yeah, this is a completely different topic from what we just discussed. I'm just learning of this issue, but it makes sense. Drug dealers are using social media to reach people, right? It just makes sense to use a platform to do that. And sometimes kids, they're targeting children to get them. The people in this article, they were parents of children who died of fentanyl overdoses. So they bought something, had some fentanyl, and they died from it tragically. And so those parents want to do something about that, and they're pushing various laws. Sammy's Law is one of them, but there are other laws as well. Pushing that to regulate social media platforms to have more accountability here. But not everyone agrees on those. So I'm really curious what you all have to say about this. I think maybe we might have some interesting debates on that. So let's go to our friend Wick.
Yeah, so we grow into our rights as people. A child does not have all the rights, right, that we afford to the average citizen. I think the right to privacy is important. But when it comes to these social media apps, when it comes to the internet, parents absolutely have both the right and I feel the responsibility to keep track of what their children are doing on the internet, right? We need this law, specifically Sammy's Law, is a good law. Let's pass this shit. Right, let's get it passed. Look, there are concerns. The devil's in the details with these things, right? And I think that there is some risk of overbearing, some parents being overbearing, but those risks pale in comparison to the risks of not tracking your child's activities on the internet, right? And not just for drugs, but for all sorts of issues. Do you really want them to be listening to anarcho-capitalists? Do you want your child exposed to that kind of nonsense at an early age? Absolutely not. Any responsible adult would keep their child from such drivel and craziness. This is worse than drugs, in my opinion. But yeah, on a more serious note, less memery, you absolutely you need to keep track of children's activities on the internet, and parents have both